Okay, hi, welcome back. And before I start this video, I do have a couple of things to say. First thing is, I'm still really stupid when it comes to certain things, so if I say something that's offensive or inappropriate, I don't mean to. I'm trying to be compassionate and understanding, and I'm learning things as I go along, so that's my purpose. If you want to correct me in the comments, I appreciate that, because it's not going to hurt me to learn more about different kinds of people and how to be a better person in that regard. And I want to talk about some things that I had said in a previous video. And my attitude has changed actually in the last couple of weeks as I've learned some more things about people who are intersexed. So last night I was watching Netflix, and there is a show called You Can't Say That. And this was in season 4. It was the 3rd episode, but their episodes aren't numbered, so the title of the episode is Intersex. And I hate to say the word curious, but I don't mean it in a ignorant kind of, ignorant and as uneducated, but not as in a mean way, in a nice way. If you want to learn more about people who are experiencing this is a great show, especially to start. And interestingly, here's the gist of the show. It's filmed in Australia, so the people who are in the show, that's where they live. And it's people who are, whatever the topic is for that particular episode, they answer questions, common questions. And so for this particular episode, I'm not going to talk about all of them, I haven't even watched all of them, but with the intersex people, the very first thing that they addressed is the H word that I had used in my video about being a ex-United Healthcare employee. And I used that word, and somebody very nicely told me that that's not considered a nice word anymore, that it's a derogatory term considered now, and the correct word is intersex. So I don't say that word. But if you're interested in watching that video, I will link it below. But anyway, they addressed that in the very first question, but I found it very enlightening, I'll say it that way. They had a whole spectrum of people that most of them, if they weren't saying anything and you just passed them on the street, you'd think they were either male or female. There was one person, to me, appeared, when you look at their face, to there was something different about that one person. But overall, just looking at them before they ever started speaking, I am so sorry about the sun, you wouldn't know, really. So they answered a lot of questions about different aspects of it. They told about their experiences, what they went through as children, whether or not they had surgeries. All of them had different types of intersex anatomy, and they all explained their personal anatomy, I guess. So some were born with holes in places they weren't supposed to be. Other had holes in, or didn't have holes where there should have been holes. Some people had no reproductive organs internally. There were people who had, or one person I think said that they had one ovary and one testicle. and a couple of them named which I can't remember. They're about a foot long, but there was 2 different types of intersex that have specific names. So a couple people named that, and they told about the surgeries that they had and some of the difficulties that they went through. It was just very, very enlightening, and it was very, all of these were lovely people. They really were. There was nobody that I thought, I don't want to know that person. If I didn't know anything about what they were talking about, and it didn't matter, it was somebody I would, would I sit down and have lunch with them at work? I would. All of them. And they all looked different. Some people were more stylish, and some were not. It didn't, as far as that goes, it doesn't really matter. They just look like average people that you would see on the street in the whole spectrum just walking down the road. And the personalities all seemed very likable. But there was one thing that I got out of this that I think is very, very significant, and it has changed my attitude even in the last couple weeks, because I really have a lot of compassion, I still do, for the child that I talked about in my first video when we started talking about healthcare, and that, what she was going through. But there was one thing that one of the people said that was very significant, and I think it's important. And I'm going to say she. I don't know what the pronouns that these people use are, so I'm just going to say she. She said, if you can pee, leave it be. And one of the reasons why this is important is because there's not a lot of understanding at this point on what happens with these people as they develop and become adults. And so you may be looking at something and think, well, it's more girl than boy, and make a medical decision based on what you see with your eyes, not realizing that later on, as their bodies develop and they go through puberty, that something else may come out and contrary to what you think you know. And so I think that I still have a ton of stuff to learn. I'm obviously not an expert. I probably will never be an expert. And but I do want to be compassionate to people who have differences, regardless of what it is. And this is one of those things that you don't always know, because it's not always obvious, since we walk around with clothes on, and it's inappropriate to talk about sex and unless it's in a certain context, in a certain environment. You're not just going to walk up to somebody and say, I have a penis, or I have a vagina, or I have both, or I have none, or whatever the case may be on the street. So these people live in silence for the most part, and it can make things awkward for not just them, but the person that they're trying to have a relationship with, if things aren't the way you would expect them to be, or you have to explain how things are different. And they do talk about relationships, and there was one person who, maybe two, at least one, who doesn't even bother with that, our typical romantic relationships, because they just don't have those kind of feelings. And even in my own course of life, there have been times in my life when I've chosen to not be involved with men, because that's what I like. And people in my community, my personal life, thought that was weird. And it's not necessarily, I had my reasons for it. it may not have been, quote, normal, but it really wasn't abnormal either for me in the circumstances that I was going through at the time. And so just in that one little bit in my life where I could relate to a person's choices of abstinence or whatever, I can understand somebody who maybe just chooses not to have those kind of relationships for whatever reason. It's personal. It's very personal. And you know, having sex is nice. You know, we're not going to deny that it's not nice under in healthy circumstances. I'm not talking about unhealthy, meaning violent, meaning just whatever. You know, this is YouTube. But it's nice to connect with a person on that kind of level, but it's not necessary. It's not gonna make you live longer or better or whatever. And so, you know, I don't think that's all that weird, to be honest with you. But I'm so sorry about this too. Goodness. Anyway, I would just, if you want to learn more, this is a really good place to start. It's a very complex issue. It's not a simple thing because every single person is going to be different. But there is some commonality and explanation. And I think that in particular for people who are born intersex, it's kind of an invisible thing. And historically, I'll say, we put some stigma on it. I think that in the past, people were concerned that they wouldn't love the right person, you know, that they would be homosexual, and you know, that was not even in my lifetime acceptable. You know, you had to always be attracted to somebody of the opposite sex, and with someone who has both, what are they supposed to do? And also with children having surgeries and then later on finding out that, you know, whatever they were corrected, I'm going to say in quotations, to, may have caused complications for them as adults, because that's not how they actually are. So my feeling now, after watching the show and listening to people who have lived this experience and what they've gone through, this is just my opinion. You have to do what you feel is right, but I think the medical community is starting to move in this direction, I hope, for intersex babies and children, is to wait until they're older to see what starts, you know, how their personality develops and their own identity. That's how I feel about it. As long as their body's functioning in a way that's not going to kill them, so if they can pee, then just wait. And as a parent, I think you'd have to be really strong, because I know that kids can be mean, you know, peers, children's peers can be mean, and so we have to support them anyway. But other than that, I think it's okay to wait and let them make a decision if they want to have a surgery to change that part of their body. Oh, you know what? The other thing that came out, and this is interesting, I never even thought about this, was that most intersex people are sterile, but not all. There was one person, I did catch this person's name. Her name was Andrea. She looks like a woman, but apparently she's got guy parts functioning, and she's got children that she fathered. So there you go. Nature's pretty amazing when you think about it. Anyway, I hope that this has helped you a little bit. I apologize for stumbling all over it. Probably if I was going to take a test, I might get a C on this one, but I'm trying. So I will talk to you again later. Bye-bye.